They hit the mic.
Welcome to this session, Up the Creek. Today we're going to talk one of the most important sessions of MMS. Sure, you come here and you get your brain fried, Monday through Friday with all the configuration manager, operations manager, service manager. Of course, that'll fry your brain by itself. And it's only Monday, huh?
You can't forget app controller.
Yeah, and it's only Monday. Okay, so a lot of you have already sat through sessions. How many enjoyed that keynote today? Some really exciting things in there. Some people, I think, forcefully held their hand down on that one for some reason. We'll have to figure out why, April.
Hey, is that my banana?
But we're going to talk today about one of the more important aspects of the Management Summit, which is community and support. And I want to start out just by apologizing to everyone. Okay, so I realize that the opening reception is at 5:30, and this session is scheduled to go to 5:15. And most of you who have been here to MMS before might realize that the line is already forming for the opening reception. Okay, so we're going to go through this session and potentially end a little early, because not only do you have to get there, but we have to get there as well. Okay, we also have some things to give away during the session, some passes to the MIT Forum Party, which is tomorrow night, we'll talk about. But also, as we go a little bit further, there's a spot in here. How many have worked with System Center for more than 5 years? Okay, so a good group of you, and probably the rest of you too, probably know who Wally Mead is. He's like the godfather of System Center, all right? Wally just celebrated last year his 20th year with Microsoft, working with in the client group, the SMS, starting with SMS 1. We'll call it 1.crap, which most people do. And now it's Configuration Manager 2012 with Service Pack 1, CU1. All right, it's a longer name than it used to be. A little bit harder to say, but Wally has been around that long. And one of the hottest giveaways this year, okay, and we'll give this away sometime during this presentation. There's, of course, it's Vegas, all right? So we have a card deck, all right? On the back is a Wally over the years retrospect on the back of every card, okay? Even celebrating his 20th year with Microsoft. But not just that, Wally actually signed the card deck, okay? Not just the box, but also the deck. So that's pretty good. We're going to give that away here shortly. All right? So, how many let me ask this question, we'll get to this shortly, but how many have been to the Microsoft Management Summit, say, 5 times? All right. How many have been less than 2? Maybe this is your first year. Who's the first year? Oh, my goodness.
First year?
You guys hopefully attended Warren's session last night, the MMS 101 newbie session. Probably got a lot out of that. Okay. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go over the history of MMS a little bit, the history of the community, how to get the most out of the Microsoft Management Summit, kind of rehash a little bit what Warren talked about. But then we're going to tie this all together, and it'll be interesting how this gets done. We're going to tie all of this together with support for System Center for your organization. All right? System Center 2012 in particular is a beast of a product, right? It's a huge suite of products. A lot of people that attend MMS probably focus on a single product. But with Microsoft combining those products into a suite, there's actually a lot of value in combining those different products into a single solution for your organization. Okay, so by doing so, they may have eased some of the complexity, for instance, in licensing and certain things. But obviously, pulling all those different product types together also increases the complexity of being able to learn and understand those products. So you're thinking, for those of the first time in MMS working with System Center, how do I get a handle on these products? And as we go out through the week, and I'm glad that this session is on Monday this year. Usually it's a little bit farther down the week because this is kind of a 101 session. All right, so how do you take all this knowledge and information that you learned at MMS, how do you take that back to your organization and do something with it? All right? Microsoft Management Summit is one of the most unique conferences you will ever attend. All right? And that one key factor is the community and the networking. The sessions are awesome, highly technical. You get as much or as little information as you want to out of them. But the sessions are only part of what the value is here at Management Summit. So we'll go over that. So just a little tidbit for you. I figured we'd have a lot of newbies for Management Summit in here. So first we're going to talk a little bit about the Microsoft Management Summit. Okay, so Microsoft Management Summit started in 1998. So you're thinking, oh my goodness, is this place old? Those people have been here 5 years or more. How many have been here more than 10 years? Oh my goodness. So you're showing your age a little bit. They started when they were 10 with System Center. Yeah. At that 1998 first event, we had less than 100 people in attendance. Think about today, 2013. Over the past couple years at the Management Summit, we've upped our goals as far as attendance. And this year, 5,000 is that goal. And I'm not completely positive that we sold out this year, but we came close. We've actually sold out the past 3 or 4 years. This might be the first one within 3 or 4 years that we haven't, but we're extremely close. 2002 was the very first MMS that was branded Microsoft. So before 2002, other entities actually owned this event. In fact, My IT Forum was one of those places that helped start this event. And in fact, you can, just a little anecdote, if you want to do this, it's actually fun. I do it myself sometimes when I'm bored. If you go out to myitforum.com/conference, that's where the conference was, the website was hosted. You can actually go out there and still click through everything, look at the old sessions. It's actually interesting to go and look from 2013 back to 2002 and see the differences in the type of content. Because 2002, it was all SMS, every bit of it. The Microsoft Management Summit was Systems Management Server. Okay, so look how far we've evolved, not just from an attendance standpoint. Also look how far we've evolved from a technology and session and context standpoint. It's actually pretty incredible. You may look at it and think, okay, so this has been going on for X number of years. That's a long time. Really, it's not. How System Center has progressed, it's been very quick. It's been branded Microsoft throughout 2013. 2008 was our very first sellout. In fact, you can get every bit of this, though. We have a link up that goes through the entire history of the Microsoft Management Summit if you're interested in that. Okay, so some people may grimace at this one. Those that, every time they say cloud, they go, cloud, There's some people that just tend not to get the cloud. 2010 was the very first mention of cloud at the Microsoft Management Summit. All right, so long before the keynotes like we've had today, where it was primarily focused on the cloud. 2010 was the very first mention, the very first time that Microsoft started visualizing, idealizing the cloud as a management product. And also ironic, the very first year that it was mentioned, some of you that were here remember that half of our attendants could not attend because they were coming from the UK and the Icelandic volcano erupted, and a cloud kept everyone from attending. So kind of ironic. Just like you saw in today's keynote, the cloud was down, so the keynote was delayed. All right. The cloud represents some things that have to be worked around. Also, that year, some of you may also remember this. Most of the people that attended the conference, even though it was halved, most of the people that attended that conference spent that first Monday stuck in the rooms working on McAfee antivirus signature issues because McAfee botched antivirus signatures. So just some tidbits. Some history. Hotels that we've actually been to. 1999, the Ritz-Carlton. That was probably our favorite place. 2000 was the Flamingo. Think about where we're at today and how huge this place is. The Flamingo, oh my goodness. You would actually stick to the floor walking across the casino. The MGM Grand, and you probably still do. MGM Grand, we were actually there twice, 2001 and 2002, and I remember, oh my goodness, it was a much larger hotel, of course, than the Flamingo, and I complained about the walk from the hotel to the conference center. Okay, so where are we at? We're at Mandalay Bay. The walk here, yesterday I put in, I have a little watch that tracks my steps. I put in over 20,000 steps yesterday. What that relates to as in miles, I have no idea, and I really don't want to know. It helped me sleep well. We've been to Mandalay Bay several times, 2003, 5, 11, and this year, 2013. The Venetian, that's also one of those. We've been there quite often, and also one of those places that I call home because I know where everything is. And the only time that we've been out of Vegas in recent years was in San Diego for 2 years in 2006 and 2007. So here, if you notice that graphic up there, what I want to do for those old timers is figure out who's been here the longest. So I'll tell you a little bit, I'll give away my age just a little bit. So with all these conferences, okay, and so we'll get into the community aspect, how this all fits together here shortly. All these conferences since 1998, I had to sit and think about it. People started posting, I've been to this many, So I had to sit there and think about it. I have actually been 15 years and 19 events. And that was when we used to have events in the UK, in Europe, and also in Australia. So there were, 3 conferences per year. So that's been a long time. And I tell you what, it makes me feel tired, real tired. But I want to find out who has been here, and you can't participate.
I'm young.
All right.
I'm just 40.
So we talked about how many have been here. Did you say 10 times? Who's been here to MMS at least 10 times?
10 times. Raise your hand.
All right.
there's 4.
11.
There's 4.
They're counting. All right. Yeah, okay, we got a straggler. 12.
Oh, 1 went down. There's 3.
13. Oh my goodness, so we'd have to tie. Okay.
So y'all came in 2000 was your first.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, the original one. And you were at the original one. Oh, straight.
Were you at the original one in the back? You. Started 2001, MGM? Okay. Steve? 2000. But
And you missed last year.
Last year.
Sherry?
Steve's also like a 17-year MVP.
2001 then consecutive. And I know Michael missed like 2 or 3 years.
So it's a toss-up between in the back and in the front.
All right. You got a good question? We actually do. They're not signed, though. He already has a badge.
He doesn't have a badge.
What would you rather have? A Wally Mead card deck or a party badge? What is it? All right.
Okay.
Wally or party badge? Party. Oh, my goodness. All right.
All right. By default. Come see me after.
Okay. So you know what this party badge is about, right? Everybody knows what this is?
Well,
who does not?
Who doesn't know my IT forum?
Okay. All right.
You don't know my IT forum. Okay. Well, you get this. This is my last one because now you will know what my IT forum is.
So what happens every year? Okay, so we've had this party for several years. I didn't even put that little fast fact on there.
Since 2003.
2003. Oh, that's right. So it's a popular party. It's just a party where everybody gets together and able to network, have food and drinks, one of those Vegas type deals. This year it's at the Border Grill. What happens though, it's a first come, first serve basis. So everybody that floods the MIT Forum booth, first come, first serve, gets access to the badges. The party is so popular that That's why I had mentioned earlier that we're going to try to get done just a little bit early, is because the line for the opening reception starts about an hour, hour and a half early.
It's already started.
Yeah, because
They're
people
already in line to get back there to our booth.
So if you've not heard this, I hope you heard it at Warren's session last night, but as soon as we get out of here, you want to go get in line for the opening reception. Opening reception is great anyway, and from what they've told me, they're going to have the NCAA game, and he's going to go get in line right now. They're going to have the NCAA game playing in the reception night, so you won't have to miss the game, okay? So, because I'm kind of looking
Go
forward
Cardinals.
to that as well.
Home state.
Okay, so back to it just a little bit. Okay, so we've talked about MMS. We're going to talk about the history of the community just a little bit, and then we're going to tie this back into the support. But the reason why we're talking about the community in relation to MMS is because they kind of fit together. All right. So look at that big number, that top number, 1998. Is that familiar with anything we've talked about so far? So that was the conference, right? The beginnings of the Microsoft Management Summit. That was also, at that time, my IT Forum was under the swank.com moniker, umbrella at that point. And few of you remember that. You look at the name and swank.com, it does sound a little bit like a Vegas act, right? If you say it quickly, it does sound a little dirty. But that was the original website that my IT Forum came from. So the community and the Management Summit both started at the same time. 2001 is when that actually became myitforum.com. And my IT Forum has been the community driver for the Microsoft Management Summit ever since. So these sessions that you're attending this week, like I said, the brain buzz that you're going to get this week to take back with you, the community goes through and meticulously looks at those sessions to make sure that it contains the technical information that you'll need. Because this is a Microsoft conference. How many have been to TechEd before? There you go. So Management Summit is a little bit different than the TechEd stuff, at least used to be. TechEd has kind of come along quite a bit. But it's a Microsoft conference. There has to be Microsoft messaging. You can't come here and not get the Microsoft message, right? So every year there's a list of things that Microsoft definitely wants to submit and promote, all right? And then the community goes through and looks at each one of those things and says, you know what? We don't have enough of this. This is what we're facing. These are the problems that we have. We need somebody to cover this. One of the great examples, there is actually a licensing session this year. Okay, that was one of the things that we specifically noted. The past 2 or 3 years, that's been one of the largest issues. Okay, so Microsoft, quote unquote, simplified the System Center licensing, yet everybody still scratches their head and said, well, thanks for simplifying it, now explain it to me. All right? There are a lot of companies that make good money producing week-long training sessions just on Microsoft licensing because it's severely needed. But that was one of those things the community came together and said, you know what? We don't have a licensing session. We've talked about this for 2 years. We need it. So that licensing session is here because we have gone through and vetted and made sure that that content is accurate and something that you guys actually need. Okay, so I saw a couple of you going, hey, there's a licensing session. Yeah, definitely check that out because System Center licensing is complicated. And if there were a couple other people in this room that I know, they've been dealing with licensing issues recently, particularly Orchestrator, and that's a mess. All right, initially it was just almost free, but there are some specific issues with licensing Orchestrator within your organization. You'll be able to get that in that licensing session. Okay, it's done already. It was this morning. Did you attend it? Did it work? Very good, very good. So it will be replay 24 hours after it has been given. So look on Channel 9 tomorrow for the replay for that. All right. So my IT Forum has grown from this, place to support basically SMS in 1998 to supporting System Center today with over 145,000 unique visitors a day. You think, that's a nice number. Thanks for that number. That's a nice pat on the back. But really what that means is, what we're getting to the support issue, That's 145,000 people you can ask a question of and get an answer almost immediately, whether it's through a forum or the email lists, which we'll talk about, or any other vehicle to be able to get that support. A lot of you pay for support with Microsoft. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of how that works. Okay, but how many times have you been put on hold or escalated to the next engineer, and it's actually kind of costing your company money in the meantime, when you can probably send out one email and get 25 responses to fix that issue almost instantly. All right, so we'll talk about that. And then at the end of this session, I want to note that we're going to make a kind of a large announcement for this community at the end. Some of you already know what I'm going to announce, so you've gotten the news today already, but we'll announce that and we'll describe that and how that provides additional value to what's going on with the Microsoft Management Summit, with the community, and actually with how you get supported. So let's tie it all together. We've talked about the Microsoft management history. Hopefully I've given you some interesting tidbits, particularly for those newbies, because, I talk to a lot of people that come to Management Summit every year that are new, and they're just like flabbergasted immediately, just wide open and like, oh my goodness, my eyeballs are going to bleed. This is so much information. What do I do with this? All right. So we've talked about MMS. It is a huge conference, but it is the most wonderful thing as long as you get involved. We talked about the community history, how MMS and the community is just interbred. Okay, this is how this works, and we're going to talk about today. We've talked about today a little bit. So getting the most out of MMS 2013. So what was your plan coming to the Management Summit this year? Was it, I'm going to attend a few sessions, hopefully get something out of it and remember it? It's 2013. I'm using Evernote. I'll pick up everything, or I'm using OneNote. Let's go the Microsoft route. And I'll be able to pick up everything. I'll use my Surface. How many have a Surface, by the way? And you all work for Microsoft? Just kidding. I have one. I don't work for Microsoft. But Surface is awesome. I sit and I take notes all the time with that little stylus. It's actually pretty neat with OneNote. Divide and conquer. How many of you are here with team members? Your company actually sent a bunch of people. So, one of the most valuable things about sending team members is, I talked a little bit earlier about, how each of you are focused on different methodologies within System Center Suite. But say a lot of you are working on the same project, trying to bring all this stuff together. Well, one of the most valuable things is to divide and conquer. So you guys look at the session list and, okay, you go to this one, you take notes here, you take notes here, you take notes here, you take notes. But how many of your team members are really good at taking notes? Particularly yourself. I look at notes that I created just a week ago, and it's not because I'm getting older, but just because my notes stink. What I was thinking at the time is not what I'm going to be thinking in a week from now. Okay, so I make these notes and I go back and read them. That was really extremely important. It's like that story where you wake up in the middle of the night and you've got this idea of how to save the world. And if you were just awake enough, you would write it down. You wake up in the morning and you wouldn't be able to read it anyway because you weren't in the same frame of mind. We have the session replays. Everybody knows that you'll be able to get these replays. I mentioned earlier, 24 hours after the session on Channel 9. In the past, the Management Summit have outsourced that to other vendors to do, but it's Microsoft. It's the cloud. They're doing some extraordinary things there, so they can handle these replays and everything now. So it's all on Channel 9. Everything is kind of being lumped into Channel 9 now. The lab subscription, I don't know how many of you are aware of that. During your registration, you can always go back and purchase that. The labs that you take this week, you can actually take those online, so if you pay for that subscription. So that's one other way, that you could potentially remember what you're going to learn this week or go back and play with it or get some information to give to your management. We really need to work with this. This is how we need to do it. But what if you could ensure, okay, so despite the note-taking, despite not being able to read your own handwriting sometimes, how could you keep the MMS buzz going just all year long, okay? So you're at MMS, this is your first day, you'll realize Friday this is probably the best conference you've ever attended, okay? So how will you get approval to attend MMS 2013? based off those notes and the labs. And it's really hard, okay, to get management sometimes to approve, all right, to come back to a conference. Particularly 2013 when it's not a huge announcement year, okay? So we have the products, we have Service Pack 1, which is pretty much what everybody waits for, right, before they deploy a product. But how do you get, particularly announcement year next year with Windows Blue coming and other factors? How do you get that approval from management to attend? Okay, so this is how that community kind of ties and that support ties together. So I just want to go through what is available to you online right now.
Free of charge.
Free of charge. To be able to take that information. So those notes that you look at a week from now that you can't completely understand, there is actually that 145,000 visitors a day community sitting out there available for you to take advantage of. So if you had the question about that, because the majority of people that attend MMS know my IT Forum and they participate there quite frequently, all right? Answering questions, asking questions, and we'll go over a bunch of the ways that you can glean information. So take your notes, all right? But as you start to get involved in this community and start to participate, you'll realize what value it is to be able to, I heard this in this session, and I wasn't able to ask that question, but I can ask it here, and somebody will answer that question for you. Either someone that attended that session or someone that just knows. There's a lot of Microsoft folks, program managers, a lot of consultants that participate in my IT Forum constantly. There's people from Dell and HP that are part of that community that have grown up in this whole ecosystem, the Management Summit and the community, that answer your questions all the time. So, yeah.
And when SP1 came out for System Center, there's a couple quirks with it, 4, 5, 6, 12, 13. But all those we documented and had the links up on the site. And Microsoft, they reached out to us and wanted to ensure that we were promoting that they were working through that list instead of just seeing this big nasty list. So Microsoft watches what we do all the time on the site, and they watch what the community does because it's not what we do. Our slogan is it's powered by you. So it's powered by the community. What the community does and what Microsoft does works hand in hand together to make the product better. And those Service Pack 1 bugs were resolved in record time for Microsoft.
Yeah, there's a lot of minor releases that came out that fixed a lot of those because they looked through that list, and here's a little anecdote. I don't know if I should share this or not. I will. One of the reasons why Microsoft started looking at that list a little harder that had been produced by the community, basically. I had this problem, this is the issue, I'm not deploying Service Pack 1 because of this, okay? Even though a lot of them were configuration manager issues. The other products had issues as well. A lot of them were configuration manager. Okay, so there's this competition between Microsoft and, you heard in the keynote this morning, the other guys, all right? The other guys were going into installations with System Center, and because Microsoft is positioning System Center as a cloud management solution, the other guys are using that and saying Microsoft is pushing into the cloud. And they would actually pull that list up on my IT Forum and show it to the customer and say, this is why you shouldn't deploy System Center. This is why you should deploy us. So that's pretty significant. So Microsoft realized, we got to get this fixed. So that's another aspect, definitely, of community. When you have a voice that Microsoft listens to and you can get your problems fixed, it's actually better than a PSS call sometimes. Microsoft listens, they'll watch you participate in the forums or on the email list. They'll send you a private email and say, let me help you with this. There's a lot of Microsoft folks that do this, so you don't even have to go that whole PSS route. Probably shouldn't say that because Microsoft does make money off that, but that's just the way it is. So one of those aspects, my IT Forum has over 100 columnists who are extremely experienced and knowledgeable. And I can't highlight that enough, to tell you the truth. The majority of people that, let's put it this way, a lot of a lot of people that work at Microsoft were My IT Forum community members beforehand. And they got their job by showing their aptitude and their expertise through the community. And because Microsoft watches, like, I have lost so many really good columnists because they went to Microsoft. Okay? That's not a bad thing, really. Because fortunately, because the traffic keeps growing, the community keeps growing, we have people that replace them. Maybe, I'm not saying they're better than you, Michael, okay? But there is somebody, and that's one of the things that we'll talk about here shortly, how you can participate and do that as well. So you can actually be a columnist, okay? So you have this expertise. You guys are all here learning the System Center methodology, learning about these products. And as we continue, you would think that the products would get simpler, but they're not. They're going to get a little bit harder. And as you are here learning this and you're going back to your organization and becoming experts, the ability to share that information with a large community helps out everyone. A lot of people these days, and in the past, particularly these days with the cloud thing, everybody's kind of, if you're an on-premise admin, okay, you're kind of pushing back just a little bit because you're afraid, of the job security thing. But really, your expertise in that area helps everybody else, that community, come together and provide that job security because you're fixing issues within your organization nobody else can fix. They're going to think you're the wizard. You don't have to tell them how you did it, all right? You just have to participate. Another aspect, and this is one of the more popular features of My IT Forum for the community, is the email list. Okay, so we've learned over the years, and fortunately we started early enough, so we've kind of built a really good recipe for how this stuff should work the community. We realize there's a couple different types of people in the world, okay? So at least the online world. I don't know if you can use the word online anymore. It's probably silly. Just on the internet. Two types of people. Those that like to go get their information, like the researchers. All right? So we provide, and we'll talk about the forums here in a second, but we provide forums for that. So you can go do your searches. You can participate in a web-based forum type thing, which everybody is used to. But there are those people that like to have that information come to them. I'm one of those people. I don't know if it's because I'm lazy, but I like that stuff to fill up my inbox so that I can search through it. I can find the stuff that's interesting to me, find the stuff that helps me, shove it into folders if I use Microsoft Outlook, so I can reference it later. So that's why we provide the email list. I totally forgot to count. We have close to 50 different email lists, 60 that we run, okay, and all the different System Center technologies and a lot of other things. Like we even have a Citrix list, so you can check that out. But if you don't have a list, you don't see one that you think that we should have, all you got to do is drop an email and we'll create it. It takes 5 minutes, okay, and then we can fill that list up. But that's for those people, okay, that like email, like to have that information come in, so we can create those lists for you. One thing that I do want to highlight, that last bullet point there, it's okay to be a lurker. A lot of people, they see a community, they hear, let's get involved, let's participate. Well, that scares a few people, all right? So I don't want to put myself out there. I'm afraid that what I'm going to say is stupid or wrong. But that's not the case with My IT Forum. And in fact, it's okay to be a lurker. It's okay to sift through the information. It's okay just to receive those emails. Nobody's going to be the wiser. But as you start to be a lurker, you'll start to see things that increase your knowledge and allow you to become smarter. And you'll learn just by lurking, just by watching. So it's an important aspect of community. So check out those email lists. The web-based forums, I just mentioned those. Again, it's a web-based thing where those people that like to go, and you talk about the My IT Forum forums, so we're talking about going back to 1998. Yeah, there's some irrelevant information, some really seriously old stuff. And if you're a historian, go back and check that and laugh at people. But there is information going all the way back to the beginning, to the 2001 when it was branded My IT Forum. So quite a bit of information, quite a lot of activity. So, if you're not an email list person, if your company prohibits that type of, email list interaction, which some do, there's the forums. You can even subscribe to the forums through RSS feeds and things like that, but you can search through all that. So one of the things, interesting example was that list of Service Pack 1 things. That list was actually predicated through a thread on the forums. That thread just started filling up about SP1 issues. So we decided, hey, we need to create something that's a little bit more public-facing that Microsoft's going to take note of. So the forums are important. You can look through there. You can kind of get trends with the support issues that are going on within other companies, and you'll be like, yeah, we're having that issue. So it's not something I did, because sometimes with System Center, you'll click a button, and things will start happening, and you'll think you did it. But then you go check with the community, and you find out that it's actually something that's pretty common with other companies. It's not something you actually did. It's nice to know, especially when the boss comes and says, "What did you do?" Right? Well, everybody's having that problem. All right. Online learning. I think we have probably the largest database of online learning as far as videos and podcasts and things like that. Just an example. 208 just on Configuration Manager. And that goes back from 2007, Configuration Manager 2007 to 2012 with SP1 and things like that. So another aspect of being able to take that MMS stuff with you. Okay, so you're going to have the Microsoft Management Summit sessions on Channel 9 this year, but they will also filter through My IT Forum. So, and the reason for that, Microsoft had MMS Live last year, which was the sessions, but they were available to be streamed by everybody, but they only lasted till December. They took those offline, and they were offline for a couple months. People still want them there asking questions. Where are they? Microsoft finally put those back up with another partner, but those were also filtered through My IT Forum, so we're not going to give up on you. Okay, we're not going to, if we happen to take it offline, we're not just going to be mum about it, and it's just going to be really quiet. Because the community really does need that resource, so it will filter through My IT Forum. So if you need that, because they will eventually expire from a Microsoft standpoint, so we'll have those available. Community groups is a new thing that we've been working on with My IT Forum, which is interesting. So you're familiar with Facebook. A lot of you are. Some people curse it. Some people love it. Some people would rather not see what their family's doing in the privacy of their own home. It's just one of those Facebook things. But to take that to a technical perspective, we actually have community groups. So you can actually become part of a community that interests you. Okay, so as part of a community member as well, you can create your own groups. If you feel that there's not a group for Data Protection Manager, which there is, but if that's just an example, you can actually create that group, be the moderator of that group, invite people, and have your own special forums, have your own feeds, have your own uploads. You can create private forums. If you wanted to create one just for your company, you can create a private forum just for your company, the IT folks within your company that maybe they're working on a specific project, maybe they're working on a specific technology. You can create that private forum and invite some Microsoft folks so that you guys have a way to directly interact. There's a lot of opportunities there. You can become your own community manager, all right? Just some examples of things that have been placed up within those groups. We definitely try to keep on target. One of those is the tech books. You can go in there, and any new System Center book that's been released is listed in there, and a lot of people will review that stuff. So they have that book, they review it, so if it's something worthwhile buying. We also have an IT Fit group. As you probably recognize, I'm a fit geek, okay? But we have a lot of other folks that like to get involved with that. There's a lot of people within IT, you would be surprised. And I think I've found more than not that it's my age, okay? So I'm 40-something, and it just seems like everybody around the 40s just start to get a little healthier, right? Or want to. Yeah, so we have that. The famous SCCM right-click tools. There's a huge list in that community group of the tools, links to them, the downloads and everything. Everybody uses those things. So that's where that is stored. Newsletters, of course, you know exactly what that is. The newsletters provide information, a snapshot of exactly what is going on within that community that week. So you're off for a week, you're on vacation, which you should. You should take off vacations often, okay, and long ones, because this job just doesn't get any better, right? It's tough. So taking time off from work and away from your computer is important. So you might miss something. You can get that once-a-week newsletter that'll give you a snapshot of what went on within that community. All those forum issues we talked about, what's going on within the site and the articles and what was released, what people are sharing. You get a snapshot so you know exactly what's going on. Afraid that you'll miss something. Everything has an RSS feed. All right? Anything that you go to the site, whether it's the forums, the articles, the community groups, the different sections, everything has an RSS feed. So if you want to keep up to date on whatever you want, you can do that as well. Centralizing support. So what does this community bring? What is this, what we've talked about, what does this actually bring to you? So that brings that MMS feeling all year long. So the newbies, you don't exactly realize maybe exactly what I'm talking about by that MMS feeling. This conference was built on the community. And the most important aspect is locating someone that is like-minded, that's working on the same stuff you are, and be able to talk to them. You can go to a session and hear all about data protection manager. For the most part, you're going to get what that presenter wants you to get, right? So it sounded interesting, but it didn't exactly answer those questions that you came to get answered. But by reaching out to community members here at the Management Summit and locating people and finding, and one thing I should highlight, we have a community event tomorrow night called the Meet and Geek at 5 o'clock in the alcove on the second floor. It's a very interesting thing, and it gives you a huge opportunity to connect with people. And I understand, long time ago, coming from the IT world, and a highly geek. By nature, I'm not an outgoing person. I'm not a speaker. Okay, so it was hard for me at the beginning to get out and actually reach out to people and say, find out about them. So what we've done with the Meet and Geek, we've turned it in almost like a restaurant setting where you get seated. We've got menus of topics to help you get started if you have trouble getting topics started, and we introduce you to folks. Okay, and so you can talk, and then every 5 minutes, we ring a bell and you switch. You switch who you're talking to, so you get to meet all kinds of different people. It's almost like speed dating for geeks, except what you do after the event is up to you. We don't care. Okay, so it's really interesting to give you that MMS feeling. At least make those connections. There are people that have been to come into MMS for a long time. Probably best friends that they have made is through this event. So it's and not just from a friendship perspective, but from a colleague and professional perspective. Being able to call up on the phone and say, I've got this problem. It's another aspect of the community, being able to get that done. It gives you information about the latest releases the community does. We talked about the CU1 and the SP1 stuff. Information gives you the latest news on System Center. There's a lot of people, I've heard this quite a bit. I didn't know that was out. When did they release that? Well, my IT Forum, we work extremely close with Microsoft to provide that information. I get strange emails constantly from undisclosed sources, okay? Because what a community value it brings to Microsoft is being able to send one email to a community person and say, we need this promoted, instead of having going through all the legal red tape that it has to be done to make some kind of formal announcement on a blog, all right? That is scrutinizing for Microsoft. You see these blogs come out, they have probably gone under 2-week scrutiny just to get that one blog post to tell you one little thing. You don't have to do that in the community, okay? So, like I said, I get those. It's almost like anybody that ever used to watch the X-Files. Mulder would put that X up on the window, and waiting for Deep Throat or whatever. So it's very similar to that. Gives you the hot topics resolutions. We talked about that with the forums and the email list. Work directly with the product managers within that community. And again, outside the quote-unquote normal means, all right? But one other thing that is extreme value, everybody sleeps. The community does not. If it's a worldwide community, if you're working until 2 or 3 in the morning, which I have seen emails from people recently working on issues at work 2 or 3 in the morning, and they're wanting answers to questions, okay? So from a Microsoft perspective, can you do that? Do you have to wait till the next morning? Usually. But if you got something, a package needs to go out, or some glaring issue, you can send an email or hit the forums for a worldwide community that's probably going to answer your question about the same as they would during what I consider my daylight hours. All right, so you're going to get 24/7 support from a large community like that.
We also, back up one slide. Yep. Also, there's a lot of the MVPs are affiliated through My IT Forum. So I know we have 2 MVPs in the front row. There's probably some others that I can't see because of those big blaring lights back there. But one of the good benefits about the MVPs is they also have that direct relationship with the PMs. So if you don't know who to get in contact with, and as far as on the Microsoft level, then you can reach out to one of the MVPs and they know who to get in contact with to help you solve that problem or to make the product better. And a lot of the MVPs are affiliated through My IT Forum, and there's some other sites out there as well that are ops managers, centric, or things like that, that the MVPs have a great relationship with Microsoft and with My IT Forum in general. So those are other avenues that the community can get your help out to you as well.
Yeah, and another interesting aspect of that MVP as well is that, at one point, before System Center was such a large product, such a large suite, I think the majority of MVPs within that quote-unquote System Center area, majority of those MVPs came from their participation through My IT Forum. And even at one point, I think it was 5 years ago, the nomination form to be an MVP was a My IT Forum document. So you would take it and fill it out and send it to Microsoft. All right, so that's how important, and I'm not My IT Forum is, that's how important community participation is. If Microsoft is involved in that community, they're going to watch and they're going to know. Maybe you don't want to be an MVP. I think everybody would, because there's a lot of perks to that, being able to work directly with Microsoft, be a first name basis and say, hey, I got this problem. It's awesome. Being able to go on the Microsoft Management Summit every year to deep dive into things that probably won't be public for the next 6 months or so.
Right.
So definitely important to be involved in a community that Microsoft is involved in. Socializing support over past 4 or 5 years. There are a lot of ways to get information. One of the ways that we've branched out, of course, is the social aspect. A lot of you know I do a lot with social media. In fact, that's grown into, some silly thing that I just do all over the place these days. Dell had me out to Dell World in December just to do their social media for the event, and they're having me out again in a couple weeks for some Quest thing. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal the amount of information that you can actually get through these sources. Because you think about, community. Community is not necessarily a single site or a single entity. Community is everybody pulling together to share and provide information, however you decide to share. Okay, so a lot of that is being shared through Twitter. And in fact, Twitter has become a key communication tool for the Microsoft Management Summit, particularly over the past 3 or 4 years. And those that have been to Tech Ed in the last few years know that is also key to Tech Ed. My IT Forum has provided the social media services for Microsoft, for Management Summit, and for Tech Ed for Management Summit longer, but also Tech Ed for the past few years. It's just something we have an aptitude for, and being able to identify and track, monitor the good information coming back, and be able to share that. So you can follow at My IT Forum. You can also follow at Windows IT Pro, which I'll mention a little bit more here shortly. But Windows IT Pro, a lot of you who have been in IT for a long time probably remember the Windows IT Pro print magazine. I used to read that thing cover to cover, and I still love magazines. A lot of people are moving away and going to the digital experience. But I get a runner's magazine that I can't wait till my work is done for the day and I can kind of sit in bed and just read my runner's magazine, right? I still love magazines. Windows IT Pro magazine, I can't tell you the number of times in my life that I've sat on the toilet and read that thing. All right? It was a great magazine. But they're going completely digital, but they have, a community as well, and more of the Windows focus. But as you've probably heard and kind of gotten a little from the keynote today and some of the sessions, Windows is a lot broader than we've kind of looked at it in the past. We hear about Windows Blue coming and changes in the update and dev cycles. Well, you have to understand that as Microsoft is developing and trying to bring all this stuff together, anything that happens with Windows is going to affect the rest of the products, all right? So it's important to be part and understand that the Windows title is actually expanding. Windows touches the cloud. You look at Windows 8, I don't know how many have that deployed or are even thinking about it or hate it, because there are a few people that do. I said a few, I was being nice. But Windows 8 touches the cloud every time you open it up. You've got your Microsoft account. Everything is going that way. So anything that comes down the pipe from a Windows perspective is going to touch every other product, and that includes System Center. So you need to be aware of that. So Windows IT Pro is a good place to check that out. Track the hashtag SysCenter, SYSSTR on Twitter. A lot of people are really good at using that hashtag when they talk about System Center stuff. Facebook, My IT Forum actually has a page out there. LinkedIn, there's actual a specific configuration manager group and also My IT Forum. But there are quite a few others that I'm part of. I just put a couple up there as an example because, for the longest time, LinkedIn's been one of those sites where you go look for a job and that's about it. I think some employers are actually blocking LinkedIn because they're losing employees. But they've improved that quite a bit. There's a lot of really good content that happens in those groups, so you can search for those. So again, community, just like Windows is expanding, community is expanding, and there are a lot of places to get that. I just give you some examples. But we actually do on My IT Forum cover all those different examples as well. So if there's a new thing that comes out, just like I said, the latest news, we're going to make you aware of that. So it's almost like a central hub to get that information. So here's something really cool that you need to follow, or here's something you need to be aware of. One of those things that you may not be aware of is Brad Anderson has finally started his own blog. He's been posting pre-MMS, I guess, for the past 3 weeks, something like that. And not just his blog, but he also has his own Brad Anderson podcast, weekly podcast about the cloud. Okay, so we announced that on My IT Forum. There's a lot of people that would not have caught on to that because, Microsoft does pretty well at a lot of things, but publicizing, things that I think are important, they just don't do a very good job at it. So that's where you need to rely on other people to find that for you. And when you have a community as large as My IT Forum, somebody's going to see that and let everybody else know about it. Because it is actually a really good blog. And leading up to the keynote, he actually talked about a lot of stuff that he talked about in the keynote today, except, of course, being able to order pizza through System Center or whatever it is. So we do have one announcement before we close up today. Well, actually, a couple announcements. The first announcement, actually, the press release went out today. Those that are familiar with My IT Forum, the community continues to grow, and always the traffic. It's interesting to me. As System Center gets more popular, as System Center grows, My IT Forum continues to grow because the content and the community is there to provide the information that people want and people need. So it's been really good for us that System Center is actually doing well despite itself in some areas. Okay, so as that My IT Forum continues to grow. However, the community grows, the participation grows, but what we've not been able to do in the past is get those eyeballs from industry folks. So you think about some of these like ZDNets, which we don't ever want to be like. We don't have all those ads popping up in your face that drive you nuts. But we do need to get that industry recognition because we are producing a lot of really great content, a lot of news that you're just not going to get anywhere else, specific to System Center. So we're announcing today My IT Forum is now part of the Windows IT Pro network. So that magazine that I read on the toilet, okay, we're now part of that. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's good or bad. Is that scary? But yeah, we'll talk about this, and if we actually have a Birds of a Feather My IT Forum does on Wednesday evening. So we'll have a Q&A and we'll talk about this and go over the whole deal. We can talk about it at length. But this is extremely huge for this community. And really, it's a validity for what we've been doing for the past 15 years. It's a rubber stamp for System Center, because System Center in the cloud is becoming that important within the industry that they, Windows IT Pro has recognized that my IT Forum is the spot for System Center. We need instead of recreating the wheel and doing this on our own, because if you go to their System Center site today, you'll be like, oh, this sucks. Okay, instead of trying to create themselves, my IT Forum will provide the System Center content for Windows IT Pro. Right? So that's actually pretty neat. What that does for us and what that does for Microsoft is actually gives System Center an even larger audience. Windows IT Pro traffic is huge. Ours is really good, but Windows IT Pro is huge. So now we get to evangelize to another new audience, System Center. And I think that's important because as you go through the sessions this week, you hear about the cloud, you hear about how System Center is expanding. It is really, really important for this industry to get what System Center is, because you can't have a cloud, whether it's hybrid, on-prem, or public, without being able to manage it, because it just goes nuts. You think about BYOD, okay? How many of you are vested in taking time to figure that out? Bring your own device. A few of you, okay. There are a lot of companies that have rolled that out, okay, but now they're kind of pulling back because it's nuts, because they have no way to manage it. I know a lot of people, I've talked to are still trying to figure that out. Their boss is pushing them. We have to be able to do this. It's almost like everybody else is doing it. Why can't we? There's not a lot of sense, in my opinion, to do something like that without having some sort of management in place from a security standpoint, number one, but also being able to manage that device as it leaves your organization. If it's not owned by you, really, in the end, it's not controlled by you. That end user can do pretty much what they want to with that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So it makes a lot of sense that the industry is looking at System Center, okay, Windows IT Pro, so it's important. For them, also, another announcement. My IT Forum will be the first community website to be hosted by Microsoft in Windows Azure, or Azure, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah, I hate saying Azure. It almost sounds dirty. I use the French Azure, get a bagel, all right? But yeah, we will be moving to, we're talking with Microsoft now, and we will be utilizing that portion that they'll probably talk a little bit about this week. Right now it's in private testing in TAP, but be able to take a server VM, drop it in Windows Azure, and load it up. And you've, in essence, taken your server on-premise and putting it in the cloud, and it works exactly just as it did right here. So we're going to be doing that, which is going to be interesting. And of course, Microsoft gets to write a case study on being able to do that. But I'm actually pretty excited about it because if you've looked at some of the data and statistics and metrics of what Azure is available and the ability that it has right now, it's going to send our performance to the roof, because we're still hobbing along on a one server something or another from, I don't know, 2004?
No, new one.
Yeah.
In 2008.
2008. So to me, 2008, that's old technology. So this is going to be interesting, and being able to add resources as we need, I think that's huge. Actually excited about that, looking forward to that. So that's all we have, and I think, Michael, within 2 minutes, check your watch. So we're getting done early today. 5 minutes. You're not set right. 5 minutes. Okay. So here, we're going to end a little bit early today. I really appreciate you guys coming in to listen to what I think, personally, is the most important session of the Microsoft Management Summit, because you get to take this stuff back with you. You get to figure out how to keep that MMS feeling all year long from the best conference in the world. Okay. And but we're going to let you go early because, yes, that line is forming for that open reception. It's an amazing reception, despite that you have to elbow and fight your way to get a MIT Forum party ticket. All right? So, again, thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you in the expo.